Hey, welcome back to another episode of Tech Talk. I am your host, Jeff Hootselle, the Chief Cloud Officer with AuditMax. As you guys know, Tech Talk is a show we talk to really fascinating folks in the world of technology from really all across the country. We've always got some really great, interesting guests on the show. Today's not any different. We've got a fantastic guest. He is a SANS instructor. He's an instructor at Johns Hopkins University, a co-host of his own podcast, which is CISO Tradecraft podcast, and also is the CISO at Caterpillar Financial Services, Ross Young. Ross, welcome to the show, bud.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks to be here with you.
Ross, you're a busy man. I read off your list of all the things you're working on and your normal job at CAT. It sounds like you're pretty busy up in Nashville.
Yeah, I saw this video from Arnold Schwarzenegger where he tells people you have to sleep faster, and that's really what I try to do. I try to maximize my time, and my passion's always been cybersecurity. So I've had a lot of fun, doing it for a job, training, mentoring, and teaching the next generation of folks.
That's awesome. Well, so right now you're at Caterpillar Financial Services. So for folks that may not be familiar with the organization, I think everybody kind of knows CAT and the equipment there, but the financial services side might be of interest. Talk a little about the company and kind of your mission there.
Sure. So most people have heard of the Caterpillar Construction Company. We make all the large tractors, mining equipment, lots of different things. What you may not have heard of is Caterpillar actually has its own bank. We do different types of things from loans on all of our equipment. We do warranties. We also do insurance products on everything that we sell, and even some of our competitors. We put loans to help lease some of those equipment from our dealers across the nation and overseas.
No, that's terrific. Well, so Ross, talk to me a little about, your role, your background. You've obviously got a really depth of talent and experience in this space. I'm curious what you see as kind of the future of that security industry and security space. I've heard some quotes from you talking about the future of security as an automation. Just curious, do you still kind of hold that to be true? Hopefully I quoted that right from an article I saw you in, but is that still something you believe? And tell me more about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of different areas that are growing in the space. And I think you have to say that when you really look at an IT security team, you might have one security person for 50 developers in a large organization. So building processes that can scale through automation is a huge piece of where we're going to have to shift as an industry. And a good case point example is DevSecOps. So developers are building pipelines so that they can release software faster. Instead of writing security policies that nobody's reading, how about we put those security policies in practice and have some security checks along the way before developers release code? So that I think that's one piece. I think another one we're really seeing a shift is how does cyber just stop being only a technical organization to also being a business-focused environment? And you see opportunities where we're doing risk recommendations of here's the amount of impact shown in dollars and likelihood and quantifying. So more the math sciencey stats pieces, but bringing those to financial discussions you can have with the chief financial officer and the board.
Yeah, that's interesting, Russ. I think there's always been this challenge or goal from folks in the IT world of how do we get a seat at the table with the other C-level executives and to have really technology combined into all those business decisions and conversations. And I think we're moving that right direction that way for sure. More and more companies you talk to are calling themselves a technology company first, whether they're in quick service retail or they're in healthcare or they're in other spaces. But when it comes to the security side of things, is there still a little bit of a perception of, all right, the guys from security are going to come in and tell us what we can't do, and they're going to put boxes and walls around things, obviously in the effort to keep us safe, but sometimes at the detriment to moving fast and quick as a business. Do you think that's an unfair reputation? And how are folks in roles like yourself kind of trying to overcome that and change that mindset?
Yeah, so I think what you're talking about is what we call a doctor no mentality, and no being a NO mentality, which is people say, hey, can I do this? Security said, no, you can't use it. It's insecure. And then the business is just frustrated and they feel like they're paying all this money for security that's not really enabling them to moving forward. So we're seeing this shift from a doctor no with a NO to a doctor no with a KNOW. How do we know what the business wants to do? How do we understand the technologies that would enable them? And how do we partner together to really allow them to take the next steps in their digital transformation journeys? And as we partner on this piece where we're helping them, build digital products, maybe increasing their mobile strategy or adopting the cloud faster, then what we're able to do is align up security efforts in ways that are really going to benefit the business. So I think this piece of enabling the business by partnering on their major objectives is really where we're going to increase security in a way that they care about and want to implement it.
Yeah, so Ross, is that just a matter of kind of, folks in that security department rolling up their sleeves and really getting in the trenches with the business to understand where they're trying to go early on and participate in that conversation in the brainstorming session of how to do this and do it the proper way versus, just kind of being on the outskirts? Or how do you, in practicality, how are you guys doing that within your organization?
I think it all starts with a conversation. You go to each of the lines of business that you're supporting and you say, what would you like to do tomorrow that you can't do today? And what are your top 4 initiatives or your high profile projects that you need to implement in order to be successful? And as you just really actively listen to the business and hearing where they want to go, then it's very apparent. They'll say, okay, I'm on X version of software. I got to roll out a new release, or I got to build this new functionality that doesn't exist. And just when you look at that, they want to be successful, right? And their success is going to come from partnering through the organization. And they're going to love a good story that says, hey, I'm partnering with security to get to generation 2 of X technology, and we're making this happen. So they appear like they're getting broad adoption, they're getting the right consensus, and really successful. So I think it's a win win scenario. It just means we have to understand and listen to where they want to go, and we need to prioritize their efforts over some of the other areas in security that we may think are focuses.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting. I think from you in the seat you're in now in the CISO role, and I know you talked about the podcast that you have as well, where you guys are kind of looking at that industry and trying to inspire kind of the next wave of folks coming up in that type of position. What are those traits? So obviously communicating with the business and understanding them is a huge part of it. What are the other traits you see as being really important for that role in the company?
Yeah. So, you mentioned the podcast. G. Mark Hardy and myself, we've created a new podcast called CISO Tradecraft, where the focus really is how do we build the next generation of executives within the cyber industry? And as we think about it, there's a couple key niches of what I will say help in any job. The first is get it done. Whatever you have to do, you have to deliver results. And if you're not doing that, that's going to be a showstopper in any job or role to achieving more success. The second piece is thinking things through. You need to understand models. You need to understand the why, the business politics, all of those little elements that you're going to need to make something effective. And that typically is the process, the technology, the people, and the current environment. It could be a regulatory, it could be your offensive hackers or criminals targeting your organization. All of those things allow you to think things through. And then the last, but not certainly the least, and really I would say this is the most important of the three, is the ability to communicate successfully to your customers. Now, your customers could be your boss, it could be your partners, it could be people who work for you, it could be customers who buy your tools. If your customers are happy, they will continue to do business with you. If you're a cyber person and your customers hate you, they're going to go around you, they're going to avoid you, and that just doesn't win in a good security posture, right? So focusing on those 3 things of getting the job done, thinking things through, and keeping the customers happy is where we want to go. And it's building the right schools of tradecraft that you need to implement each of these attributes.
Oh, that's awesome. So, Ross, for people that want to check out the podcast or learn more, where's the best place for them to find that so they can download and listen to it?
Sure. So we have a website called CISO Tradecraft, CISO Tradecraft.com. You can also just search the name CISO Tradecraft in any of the common podcast providers from Google to Amazon, and you're sure to find it.
No, that's awesome. Well, Ross, buddy, that's some awesome tips for sure. I know you're doing a lot of exciting stuff. I want folks to definitely go check out the podcast and take a listen to it. But I appreciate you coming on the show today for a few minutes and just giving us some of your insights and your experience here. It was a pleasure as always.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me, and look forward to hearing more good things from your show as well.
You got it. Thanks, Ross. Hey, and thank you guys for joining as well. If you want to see more interviews like Ross's, you can check out our library of interviews on auditmax.com. And you can also download this as a podcast anywhere you find your favorite podcast episodes. Thanks. You guys take it soon. We'll see you next time.